I stood in the service entrance of Westchester Country Club, adjusting the black apron over my best dress, the one Olivia had helped me pick from Target last month. Through the crack in the door, I could see my daughter, radiant in her $3,000 wedding dress that she'd saved 2 years to afford. She had no idea her mother could have bought her 100 such dresses without blinking. The September air was thick with the scent of roses and privilege. I pressed my face closer to the gap, my heart simultaneously swelling with pride and breaking with the weight of my deception. 27 years of lies, all leading to this moment, watching my only child get married while I hid in the shadows like a shameful secret. "Excuse me, ma'am." A young server tapped my shoulder. "The manager's looking for you. Says the mother of the bride requested extra champagne for table 12. I almost laughed at the irony. The mother of the bride. That was me, though nobody here knew it. To them, I was just another invisible service worker, hired to ensure the smooth flow of their opulent celebration.
As I share this story with you, I can't help but wonder, have you ever kept a secret so big it felt like carrying a mountain on your shoulders? Sometimes we hide parts of ourselves thinking we're protecting the ones we love. If you've been there, you'll understand what comes next. And if you haven't, well, just wait.
"Tell him I'll handle it," I whispered, straightening my apron. My hands trembled as I loaded champagne flutes onto a silver tray. Dom Perignon, of course. Nothing but the best for the Brooks family and their society friends. I knew the price of that bottle, $400, because I'd once owned the distribution company that imported it. As I entered the reception hall through the service door, the contrast hit me like a physical blow. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across silk-draped tables. Orchids flown in from Thailand adorned every surface. The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon as 200 guests in designer clothing sipped cocktails that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. And there was Olivia, my baby girl, standing beside Jamie at the head table. Her smile could have powered the entire city. The way she looked at her new husband, with such pure, untainted love, made every sacrifice worthwhile. This was why I'd done it. This was why I'd hidden. "Champagne?" I kept my voice steady as I approached table 12, where Barbara Brooks held court among her country club friends. "Finally," Barbara sighed dramatically, her diamonds catching the light. "The service here is absolutely crawling. You'd think for what we're paying—" She stopped mid-sentence, her surgically enhanced eyes narrowing as they landed on me. "Wait, aren't you Olivia's mother?" The tray trembled in my hands. "Yes, Mrs. Brooks." "What on earth are you serving drinks?" "Oh, that's right. You manage that little diner in Queens. I suppose old habits die hard. Once a server, always a server."
Her friends tittered behind manicured hands. One of them, a woman whose facelift had left her in a state of perpetual surprise, leaned forward. "How unusual. The mother of the bride working at her own daughter's wedding?" "I wanted to help," I said simply, setting down the glasses with practiced precision. "How sweet," Barbara cooed, though her tone suggested she found it anything but. "Though I must say, Jamie, could have done better. Not Olivia, of course. She's lovely despite her circumstances. But this whole affair," she gestured vaguely at the opulent surroundings. "Thank goodness we were able to contribute, or who knows where they would have held it. Probably that diner of yours." My fingers tightened on the tray, but I kept my expression neutral. I'd learned long ago that the best revenge was success they couldn't see coming. Still, her words stung. Not for me, but for Olivia. "Mom," I turned to find my daughter approaching, her wedding dress swishing against the marble floor. Even in her finery, she moved with the same unconscious grace she'd had as a child, playing in our small Brooklyn apartment. "Sweetheart," I set down the tray, my server's mask slipping for just a moment. What are you doing? Olivia's eyes darted between me and her new mother-in-law's table. You should be at table 2 with Aunt Helen, and your mother was just helping out, Barbara interrupted, her smile sharp as a blade. So industrious. Though really, Olivia, you should have mentioned the staffing situation. We could have hired proper servers. I watched my daughter's face flush. Her jaw tightened, a tell she'd had since childhood when trying to control her temper. My mother doesn't need to... It's fine, baby, I interrupted gently. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for you. But Mom, you're not supposed to be working. This is my wedding day. You should be... Her voice cracked slightly. You should be celebrating with me. I am celebrating, I assured her, reaching up to adjust a strand of hair that had escaped her elaborate updo. Seeing you this happy is all the celebration I need. Barbara snorted delicately. How touching. Though I must say, Olivia, your mother's work ethic certainly explains a lot about your background. James tells me you shop at discount stores and clip coupons. I suppose one grows up with limited means. My mother, Olivia's voice cut through Barbara's commentary like ice, taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account. She worked double shifts to put me through school. She sacrificed everything to give me opportunities she never had, and she did it all alone after my father died.
If only she knew the truth about her father. But that was a secret I'd take to my grave. Of course, dear. Barbara's smile turned condescending. How noble. Though between you and me, Jamie's trust fund will ensure you never have to worry about such things again. You can finally live like a Brooks should. I don't want to live like a Brooks, Olivia said quietly. I want to live like a Mitchell, with integrity, compassion, and the knowledge that I earned everything I have. My heart swelled with pride, even as tears threatened to spill. This was my daughter, the woman I'd raised by keeping her away from the poison of extreme wealth. She'd learned to value character over cash, substance over status, and she'd found a man who loved her for exactly who she was. Or so I'd thought, until 20 minutes later when everything went to hell. I was refilling water glasses at the head table when the ballroom doors burst open with a bang that silenced the string quartet mid-note. Ryan Westbrook strode in like he owned the place, which, knowing him, he probably thought he should. He looked good, I had to admit. The kind of good that came from personal trainers, expensive suits, and the absolute certainty that the world owed you everything. His blonde hair was artfully tousled, his tan spoke of weekends in the Hamptons, and his smile promised destruction. Sorry I'm late, he announced to the stunned room, but I couldn't let this blessed event pass without sharing some fascinating information about the bride's family. Security? Barbara shrieked, but Ryan was already halfway to the head table. Ryan, what are you doing here? Olivia stood, her face pale beneath her makeup. You weren't invited. You need to leave. Oh, but Liv. He used the nickname she'd always hated. You'll want to hear this. All of you will. Especially you, James. He turned to my new son-in-law with a predator's grin. Did you know you married into one of the wealthiest families in New York?
The room erupted in confused murmurs. I set down the water pitcher carefully, my mind racing through exit strategies and damage control. Get out! Olivia's voice shook with anger. I don't know what game you're playing. No game, sweetheart. Ryan pulled out his phone with a flourish. Just truth. Your mother, that humble diner manager standing there in her servant's apron, is actually Victoria Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell International Holdings. Net worth, approximately $3.2 billion. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Barbara Brooks laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. That's ridiculous. Tori manages a diner in Queens. I've seen it myself. This is obviously some pathetic attempt to... Is it? Ryan's smile widened as he swiped through his phone. Then explain this photo from last week's Forbes Summit. Or this article about Mitchell International's acquisition of the Rosewood hotel chain. Or this security footage of Mrs. Mitchell entering the private elevator to the penthouse of the Mitchell Tower. He held up his phone, displaying a clear image of me in a $10,000 Armani suit, shaking hands with the governor at a charity gala I'd attended just 3 days ago. That's photoshopped, Olivia whispered, but doubt had crept into her voice. She turned to me, her eyes wide and confused. Mom? Tell them he's lying. Tell them this is all some sick joke. I stood there, water pitcher still in my hand, watching my carefully constructed world crumble. 27 years of deception, destroyed in a matter of minutes by a man who'd only wanted my daughter for the money he somehow suspected she'd inherit. Mom? Olivia's voice broke on the word. Say something, please. And in that moment, watching the confusion and hurt dawn on my daughter's face, I could only think one thing. Thank God she hadn't known. Thank God I'd kept her safe from this for so long. Thank God she'd had the chance to become the amazing woman standing before me, one who'd chosen love over money, character over comfort, even if she was about to hate me for it.
28 years ago, I learned that love and money create a toxic cocktail that poisons everything it touches. I was 28, pregnant, and standing in the doorway of my own bedroom, watching my husband of 3 years make love to my best friend in our marriage bed. The Egyptian cotton sheets I'd splurged on for our anniversary were tangled around their bodies. The champagne they'd opened was Dom Perignon, from the case my father had given us to celebrate our pregnancy announcement just 2 weeks earlier. But what shattered me wasn't the betrayal itself. It was what I heard next. Once the old man dies, we'll have everything, Michael murmured against Patricia's neck, unaware of my presence. Victoria's too naive to protect the inheritance. I've already got her power of attorney. The prenup has more holes than Swiss cheese, thanks to that lawyer you recommended. How much longer? Patricia's voice, the same one that had comforted me through morning sickness just that morning, now dripped with greed. His cancer could drag on for years. Months, according to his doctor. I made sure to befriend the right people at the hospital. Michael's laugh was cold, calculating, nothing like the warm chuckle that had made me fall in love with him. Once little Victoria is so grief-stricken, she'll sign anything I put in front of her. We'll send her off to a spa to recover while we transfer the assets. What about the baby? What about it? Kids are expensive. Accidents happen. Those 2 words, accidents happen, spoken about the life growing inside me, transformed my heartbreak into something harder, colder. In that moment, the naive girl who'd believed in fairy tales died, and Victoria Mitchell, the woman who would burn the world to protect her child, was born. I backed away silently, my hand pressed against my still, flat stomach. 3 hours later, I was in my father's study, lawyers present, signing documents that would change everything. By sunrise, Michael's access to everything was revoked. By sunset, divorce papers were served along with a restraining order. You can't prove anything, he sneered when security escorted him from what was now my building. I'll destroy you in court. Try, I said simply. But know this, if you come near my child, if you even think about my child, I'll use every cent of my father's fortune to ensure you never see daylight again. The divorce was brutal, but quick. Michael got a settlement, enough to keep him quiet, but not enough to satisfy his greed. He died 5 years later in a drunk driving accident, alone and better. I didn't attend the funeral. Neither did Patricia, who'd moved on to her next mark within weeks of our confrontation.
But the scars they left shaped every decision I made afterward. When Olivia was born, the 6 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect innocence, I held her in that private hospital suite and made a vow. She would never be loved for my money. She would never wonder if friendships were real or transactions. She would never experience the soul-crushing revelation that someone's kisses were actually calculations. So Victoria Mitchell, heir to a billion-dollar empire, disappeared. In her place, Tori Mitchell emerged. Single mother, diner manager, struggling to make ends meet in Brooklyn. The transformation was meticulous. I legally restructured everything through trusts and shell companies. My name disappeared from all public records. David Chen, my father's protege and the only person I trusted, became the public face of Mitchell International while I pulled strings from the shadows. I traded my penthouse for a 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, though I kept the penthouse directly above it, accessible through a hidden door I never used when Olivia was home. My designer wardrobe went into storage, replaced by Target and secondhand finds. The Mercedes became a 10-year-old Honda with a temperamental air conditioner, and every single day was a performance that would have won me an Oscar. "Mommy, why can't we go to Disney World like Emma's family?" 7-year-old Olivia had asked, her big brown eyes so like her father's, yet holding none of his cruelty, filled with longing. "Because we're saving for something even better," I'd told her, pulling her into my lap. "Your education, so you can be anything you want to be." "But Emma's mom doesn't work, and they have a pool and everything." My heart clenched. Emma's mother was married to a hedge fund manager who'd propositioned me at every school function, assuming a poor single mother would be grateful for his attention, if only he knew I could buy and sell his fund 10 times over. "Would you rather have a pool or a mom who's here for you every day?" I asked softly. "Because I choose you, baby, every time." She'd hugged me then, her little arms fierce around my neck. "I choose you too, Mommy." Those moments made every sacrifice worthwhile. Every time I had to pretend to count change at the grocery store. Every time I wore the same dress to school functions while other mothers whispered behind their hands. Every time I worked double shifts at the diner, really attending board meetings via video while Olivia thought I was serving coffee. The close calls were numerous, each one a test of my resolve. When Olivia was 15, she'd won a scholarship to Whitmore Academy, except it wasn't a scholarship. I'd donated $10 million anonymously to ensure she got in. She'd cried with joy, believing her essay about overcoming economic hardship had earned her the spot. I'd cried too, knowing I'd given her the gift of earning something she thought she'd achieved on her own.
At 18, our apartment building had suddenly gone co-op, and we'd miraculously won the lottery to purchase our unit at a ridiculous discount. Olivia had danced around the kitchen, talking about how our luck was finally changing. She never knew I owned the entire building and had orchestrated the whole thing. When she was 22, fresh out of Columbia, another scholarship, she'd started dating Ryan Westbrook. Handsome, charming Ryan, whose father had lost everything in a Ponzi scheme and was desperately seeking a wealthy wife for his son. The background check I'd ordered revealed his plan: seduce Olivia, convince her to investigate her mother's finances, and uncover what he suspected was hidden wealth. Breaking them up had required delicate maneuvering. A job offer for Ryan in London, too good to refuse. Tickets to a climate change conference in Sweden for Olivia at the exact same time. Distance, misunderstandings, and a few carefully placed rumors about Ryan's activities abroad. When they finally broke up, Olivia had cried in my arms for a week. "I thought he was the one, Mom," she'd sobbed. "The right one won't leave you for a job," I'd whispered, holding her close, hating myself for the manipulation, but knowing it was necessary. "The right one will choose you above everything else." And then came Jamie Brooks. I'd watched him for 2 years before he ever asked Olivia out. Had him investigated, surveilled, tested in ways he'd never know. When David reported back that Jamie had turned down a significant promotion because it would have meant less time with Olivia, I'd finally relaxed. When he'd chosen a small, meaningful proposal in Central Park over the elaborate Broadway spectacle his mother had suggested, I'd actually smiled. He loved my daughter, not her potential inheritance, not her connections, just her. Which brought me to the present moment, standing in a ballroom full of people, my daughter staring at me with those same brown eyes that had once looked at me with such trust, now filled with confusion and growing betrayal. "Mom." Olivia's voice was barely a whisper.
Is it true? Is any of it true? I set down the water pitcher with trembling hands. Around us, 200 guests leaned forward like spectators at a gladiator match, hungry for blood. Barbara Brooks had turned an interesting shade of purple. Jamie stood frozen, his face unreadable.
And Ryan Westbrook smiled like the snake he'd always been, knowing he'd just detonated a bomb that would destroy everything I'd built. I can explain, I began, but even to my own ears the words sounded hollow. Explain? Olivia's voice cracked. Explain which part? The part where you're apparently a billionaire? The part where our entire life has been a lie? The part where you've been pretending to be someone you're not for my entire existence? I did it to protect you, I said, my voice stronger now. This was the moment I dreaded and prepared for. Everything I did was to protect you. From what? She gestured wildly around the room. From this? From having a normal life? From not having to watch you count pennies and skip meals so I could have new school supplies? Each word was a knife to my heart, because I remembered those moments too. Pretending to skip dinner because I'd eaten at work, when really I was trying to teach her that money was precious, that waste was wrong, that abundance should never be taken for granted. From being loved for the wrong reasons, I said quietly. From never knowing if people cared about you or your bank account. From the poison that money brings to every relationship it touches. That wasn't your choice to make. Olivia's tears were flowing freely now, her mascara leaving dark trails on her cheeks. You had no right to... I had every right. My voice hardened as I straightened, letting a glimpse of the real Victoria Mitchell show through. I'm your mother. Protecting you is not just my right, it's my duty. And if I had to do it again, I would make the same choice every single time. The room erupted. Barbara Brooks found her voice, shrieking about fraud and deception. Guests pulled out phones, no doubt Googling Victoria Mitchell, billionaire. Ryan stood back, satisfied with the chaos he'd created. But I only had eyes for my daughter, who looked at me like I was a stranger wearing her mother's face, which I supposed I was.
The wedding was imploding before my eyes, and I had to decide, reveal myself or let it crash. 3.2 billion? Barbara Brooks' voice hit a pitch that made the crystal glasses hum. You mean to tell me that this woman, this diner manager I've been pitying for months, could buy and sell our entire family? She whirled on her son, her designer dress flaring dramatically. James Theodore Brooks, did you know about this? Jamie hadn't moved since Ryan's revelation. He stood like a statue beside his bride, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. No, Mother, I didn't know. His eyes found mine across the chaos. I married Olivia believing her mother worked 18-hour shifts to keep them afloat. I fell in love with a woman who shared her lunch with homeless veterans because she said her mom taught her that kindness costs nothing. Oh my God. Olivia sank into her chair, white as her wedding dress. The lunches. You packed extra lunches every day. Said it was leftovers from the diner. But there was no... She pressed her hands to her mouth. There were no leftovers. You were buying extra food to teach me to share. Baby, don't. She held up a trembling hand. Just don't. I can't. Well, I certainly can. Barbara had recovered from her shock and was now practically glowing with avarice. Victoria, may I call you Victoria? Or do you prefer Mrs. Mitchell? Oh, this changes everything. Olivia, darling, why didn't you tell us? We could have had the wedding at the Plaza, the St. Regis. We could have... Shut up. Jamie's words cut through his mother's babbling like a blade. Barbara gasped. James, how dare you? I said, shut up. He turned to face her fully, and I saw something in him I'd missed during my 2 years of surveillance, a spine of steel beneath the Brooks family polish. This is exactly why she hid it. Listen to yourself. 2 hours ago, you were calling her mother that pathetic diner manager. Now you're ready to kiss her feet because she has money. You were being exactly who you are. And apparently, Mrs. Mitchell saw you coming from a mile away.
Ryan laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Oh, this is rich. Literally. Tell me, Jamie, how does it feel knowing your mother-in-law played you? That every struggle you witnessed, every sacrifice you admired was just theater? You want to know how it feels? Jamie moved so fast, even I was startled. One moment, he was beside Olivia. The next, he had Ryan by the collar. It feels like watching a parasite try to destroy something beautiful because he couldn't have it for himself. Jamie! Several groomsmen rushed forward, but Jamie had already released Ryan with a shove that sent him stumbling backward. You dated her for 2 years, Jamie continued, straightening his cuffs with deliberate calm. 2 years, and you never saw who she really was. You saw dollar signs, a meal ticket, a way to restore your family's fortune. Mrs. Mitchell knew exactly what you were, didn't she? Ryan's face flushed ugly red. At least I was smart enough to suspect. Smart? I found myself moving forward, my servant's mask finally completely shattered. You call it smart to hire private investigators to stalk my daughter, to hack into my encrypted systems, to bribe my employees for information? The room went silent again. This time, it was the kind of silence that comes before an earthquake. Oh yes, Mr. Westbrook. I let Victoria Mitchell surface fully, the woman who'd built an empire from her father's legacy and expanded it tenfold. I know all about your little investigations. Every PI you hired, I hired first. Every employee you bribed reported directly to me. Every move you made, I knew about 3 steps ahead. Mom. Olivia's voice was small, shocked. You knew he was... I knew everything, sweetheart. His father lost their fortune in a Ponzi scheme in 2019. By 2021, they were desperate. Ryan's assignment was to marry money, preferably new money, easier to manipulate. He had a list of targets. You were number 3. Number 3? Olivia's face crumpled. The first 2 figured him out. You were harder to research because I'd hidden us so well. But he suspected. All those questions about your childhood, your father, your grandparents, he was fishing. The conference, the climate conference in Sweden, you said you won the tickets in a raffle at the diner. I bought them, and I made sure Ryan got that job offer in London at the same time. I'm sorry, baby, but he would have what? Loved her? Married her? Given her the life she deserved instead of this elaborate deception?
You would have destroyed her. The words came out in a roar that surprised even me. Just like her father tried to destroy me. Just like every money-hungry leech who's ever tried to get close to us. You would have married her, gained her trust, and then... Then what? Olivia stood abruptly, tears streaming. What exactly did you think would happen, Mom? That I'm so weak, so stupid, I couldn't protect myself? You don't understand. No, you don't understand. She was shouting now, bride's decorum completely abandoned. I'm not you. Whatever happened with Dad, whatever he did, I'm not you. And Jamie isn't him, and you had no right to manipulate my entire life because of your trauma. The word hung in the air like a physical blow. Trauma? Is that what she thought this was? Your father, I said quietly, planned to kill you. The entire room gasped. Even Ryan stepped back. What? Olivia's voice was barely a breath. I overheard him on the phone with his lawyer discussing how tragic accidents happen to babies all the time. SIDS, they could claim, and with you gone, there'd be no need to share the inheritance with the child. Just him and my father's fortune. You're lying, but her voice wavered. I'm not. I reached into my pocket, even servants' aprons have pockets, and pulled out my phone. I've carried the recording for 27 years. Would you like to hear your father discussing the best way to murder you while you slept in your crib? Oh my God. Jamie moved instinctively closer to Olivia, as if to protect her from words spoken decades ago. He actually, I confirmed. So yes, I hid. Yes, I lied. Yes, I manipulated situations to protect my daughter. Because I have seen what money does to people. I've seen love turn to greed, marriage turn to manipulation, and I refused to let that happen to her. But it happened anyway. Olivia's voice broke completely. Don't you see? You were so busy protecting me from hypothetical monsters that you became the liar in my life. Every memory I have is tainted now. Every struggle we shared, every moment I thought brought us closer, all of it was fake. Our love wasn't fake. Tears were running down my face now, and I didn't bother to hide them. My pride in you wasn't fake. The woman you became, strong, independent, compassionate, that's not fake. How would you know? She laughed bitterly. Maybe I'm exactly like you. Maybe I've been performing too, being the daughter I thought you wanted because I believed we were poor. Maybe the real me would have been completely different if I'd known the truth. A movement in the crowd caught my eye. David Chen, my most trusted ally, stepped forward from among the guests. In his hand was a small communication device. Mrs. Mitchell, he said quietly, his voice carrying despite the chaos, security has been alerted about Mr. Westbrook's unauthorized entry. Shall I have him removed?
The reveal of having security present sent another ripple through the crowd. Security? Barbara's voice rose again. You have security at my son's wedding? I have security everywhere Olivia goes, I said simply. I have since she was born. The man who served your champagne? Former Navy SEAL. The woman who did the flowers? Retired Secret Service. Half the catering staff are trained bodyguards. This is insane, someone whispered. This is protection, I corrected. The kind of protection only money can buy. The kind Olivia never knew she had because I made sure she never needed to know. I think I'm going to be sick. Olivia pressed her hands to her stomach. Sweetheart. Jamie reached for her, but she jerked away. Don't touch me. I can't. She looked around wildly, a caged animal seeking escape. I need to get out of here. You need to decide, Ryan interrupted, his voice silky with malice. Are you going to continue this farce of a wedding, knowing everything you know, knowing your mother has been pulling your strings like a puppet your whole life, knowing she's probably manipulated this relationship too? I haven't, I said sharply. Jamie is perfect. Too perfect. An investment banker who turns down promotions for love, who proposes with a 2-carat diamond when his family could afford 10. Tell me, Mrs. Mitchell, did you arrange that too? Did you pay him to? The punch came out of nowhere. 1 second Ryan was talking, the next he was on the floor, blood streaming from his nose. Jamie stood over him, flexing his fingers. Say one more word about my integrity, Jamie said calmly, and the next punch breaks your jaw. Jamie, Barbara shrieked. The lawsuit! Think of the scandal! I am thinking, Jamie turned to face Olivia, his eyes bright with unshed tears. I'm thinking about the day I met you. You were volunteering at the soup kitchen on 42nd Street. Your hair was in this messy bun, and you had mashed potatoes on your shirt, and you were laughing with this old veteran about his conspiracy theories. You were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Jamie, Olivia's voice cracked. I'm thinking about our first date. How you insisted on splitting the check, even though I knew you'd have to eat ramen for a week to afford it. How you walked 30 blocks in heels that were killing you because you didn't want me to pay for a cab. Stop, she whispered. I'm thinking about the night you told me about your mom, how proud you were of her, how you said she was your hero, working herself to the bone to give you a better life. How you wanted to be half the woman she was. He took a step closer. And you know what? You were right. She is a hero. just not the kind you thought." "How can you say that?" Olivia demanded. "She lied to me! To us!" "She protected you," Jamie said simply, "in the only way she knew how. And look at the result. My mother, who's been treating your mom like garbage, is now ready to worship her. Ryan, who claimed to love you, only wanted your money. But you became someone who judges people by their actions, not their accounts, who gives freely, even when you think you have little, who loves with your whole heart without asking what you'll get in return." He took another step closer. Close enough to touch, but keeping his hands at his sides. "Your mother gave you something billionaires can't buy, Olivia. She gave you the chance to become yourself without the weight of wealth distorting every relationship. And if you can't see what a gift that is," he glanced around the room at the gawking guests, his gossiping mother, the bleeding ex-boyfriend, "then maybe you should look at the alternative." The room held its breath. Even Ryan had stopped moaning about his nose. Olivia stood there, my beautiful daughter in her wedding dress, tears streaming down her face as she looked between me and the man she just married. The silence stretched taut as a wire. Then Ashley Kim, her best friend from college, stepped forward from the bridesmaids line. "Can I say something?" She didn't wait for permission. "Liv, remember sophomore year when you gave me your meal plan because I couldn't afford food? Remember how you said your mom taught you that going hungry builds character, but letting a friend go hungry builds nothing? Ashley, remember junior year when you organized that fundraiser for the homeless shelter? You said your mom used to take you there on Sundays, not to volunteer, but to eat because it was free. You said it taught you dignity and humility."
"Stop," Olivia begged. "Remember last year when my mom got sick and you flew to Seattle 4 times to help me? You used every penny of your savings, said your mom showed you that money meant nothing compared to being there for people you love?" Ashley turned to me, and I saw understanding in her eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell, I get it now. Every struggle taught her empathy. Every sacrifice showed her values. You didn't just hide your money, you used your fake poverty as a teaching tool." "The Christmas when we had no heat?" Olivia whispered, staring at me. "You said the boiler was broken. We slept in the living room by the space heater, made hot chocolate on the camping stove. You said it was an adventure." "You were 8, I said softly. "You'd been crying because Susie from school said poor people were lazy. I needed you to understand that circumstances don't define worth. The summer we couldn't afford camp. You took 2 weeks off work, unpaid, you said, and we went camping in the Catskills. You taught me to fish, to read the stars, to be comfortable with silence. You needed to know that happiness doesn't require money. The father-daughter dance I couldn't go to because we couldn't afford a dress. You stayed up all night sewing one from curtains, like something out of a movie. Said it was what your mother did for you. Your grandmother never sewed a thing in her life. She had staff for that." I smiled through my tears. "But you needed to know that love shows up in effort, not expense." "Oh my God." Olivia sank back into her chair. "Oh my God, it was all... Every single moment was a lesson." "Not every moment," I protested. "The love was real. The laughter was real. The lies were real too," she finished. The words hung between us like a blade. Around us, the wedding guests shifted restlessly. Someone was live streaming. I could see the phone pointed our way. By tomorrow, this would be everywhere. The carefully maintained secret of 27 years destroyed in minutes. But all I cared about was the look in my daughter's eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell," the security guard David had summoned appeared at my elbow. "Should we clear the room?" I looked around at the circus my daughter's wedding had become, at Barbara Brooks, who was now eyeing me with naked greed, at Ryan, still on the floor, his perfect nose definitely broken, at the guests recording every second for social media fodder. Then I looked at Jamie, standing protectively near Olivia despite her rejection of his comfort, and at Olivia herself, my baby girl,
trying to reconcile the mother she thought she knew with the stranger standing before her.
No, I decided. Don't clear the room. Let them see. Let them all see what I've done and why. I straightened my shoulders, every inch the billionaire CEO despite my servant's apron. But Mr. Westbrook goes. Now. With pleasure. The security team moved in, professionally hauling Ryan to his feet. "This isn't over," he shouted as they dragged him toward the exit. "I'll sue. I'll expose everything. You'll do nothing," David Chen spoke with quiet authority. "The restraining order you violated by coming here ensures that, as does the federal investigation into your hacking activities. Did you really think we didn't know about the bribes, the corporate espionage? Your friend at the FBI has been working with us for months." Ryan's face went white. "You can't prove." "We can, and we have. Enjoy prison, Mr. Westbrook. I hear they serve excellent ramen." The doors closed behind him with a definitive thud. "Well," Barbara Brooks said into the silence, "this is certainly unexpected." "Mother, if you say one more word, I'm filing for emancipation from this family," Jamie warned. "You can't file for... You're 30 years old!" "Then I'll file for whatever keeps you quiet for the next 5 minutes while my wife decides if she still wants to be my wife." That stopped Olivia cold. She looked down at her hand, at the simple diamond Jamie had chosen when he could have afforded so much more. "You knew," she said suddenly. "Oh my God, you knew!" Jamie frowned. "Knew what?" "That's why you chose this ring. That's why you never pushed for a bigger wedding. That's why you..." Her voice trailed off as she stared at him. "How long have you known?" "Liv, I didn't..." "Your promotion? The one you turned down? You said it was because you wanted more time with me, but it was really because..." She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "Because you were testing me? Making sure I'd choose you over money?" "What? No. Olivia, I had no idea about any of this. I turned down that promotion because I love you. I chose this ring because it reminded me of your eyes. Every decision I made was about us, not about... How can I believe you?" She was sobbing now, ugly, wrenching sobs that tore at my heart. "How can I believe anyone? My whole life is a lie, my mother's a stranger, and now my husband might be..."
"I'm not," Jamie said firmly. "I am exactly who I've always been, the man who fell in love with a girl in a soup kitchen, the man who doesn't give a damn if your mother has billions or nothing." He paused. "Though I admit, this explains why she always seemed to know things. Like that time she warned me about the insider trading investigation at my firm before it went public." "You what?" I hadn't meant to speak, but the words escaped. Jamie turned to me with a wry smile. "6 months ago, you pulled me aside at Sunday dinner, said you'd heard diner gossip about investigations at Wellington Brooks, told me to make sure my trades were clean. I thought it was weird that a Queen's diner would have Wall Street gossip, but..." He shrugged. "Now it makes sense." "I may have sources," I admitted. "You have sources?" Olivia laughed hysterically. "Of course you do. Of course my mother, the diner manager, has Wall Street sources. Why not? What's next? Do you secretly own the Mets?" "Just a minority share," I said without thinking. The look on her face made me wish I could take it back. "I'm done," she announced. "I'm done with all of this. The lies, the manipulation, She grabbed her skirts, heading for the door. "I need air. I need space. "You need the truth," I called after her. "All of it. No more secrets, no more lies. Let me tell you everything." She paused at the door, not turning around. "Why should I listen to anything you say?" "Because I'm still your mother. Because regardless of the money, the lies, the manipulation, I'm the woman who held you through ear infections and heartbreaks, who taught you to ride a bike and drive a car, who loves you more than life itself." My voice broke. "Because if you walk out that door without hearing the whole truth, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering." "The rest of my life?" She turned then, mascara streaking her face. "You mean the life where I'm apparently an heiress,
where I've been surrounded by bodyguards I didn't know about, where my struggles were manufactured and my choices were orchestrated? Where you chose love over money, I said quietly. Where you became a woman of substance instead of status. Where you found a man who loves you, not your bank account. That life, Olivia. The one I killed myself to give you.
She stood there, framed in the doorway, my beautiful daughter in her wedding dress, teetering between running and staying. 5 minutes, she said finally. You have 5 minutes to convince me why I shouldn't walk out of here and never speak to you again. 5 minutes to explain 27 years of deception. 5 minutes to justify a lifetime of lies. 5 minutes to save my relationship with the only person in the world who truly mattered to me. I looked around the room, at the gossiping guests, the live streaming phones, the chaos of our shattered facades. Not here, I decided. David, clear the room. Everyone out except family. This should be good, Barbara muttered, but she made no move to leave. I said family, I repeated, looking directly at her. Real family. The kind that loves without price tags. Jamie stepped forward. Mother, go. Now. But now. As the security team efficiently herded guests toward the exits, ignoring protests and threats, I watched my daughter. She stood frozen in the doorway, a bride on the threshold of more than just a room. 5 minutes, she repeated, when we were alone. Just her, Jamie, Ashley, David, and me. Starting now. I took a deep breath, removed my apron, and prepared to tell my daughter the hardest truth of all, that sometimes the greatest love looks like the cruelest betrayal.
My whole life was a lie. The struggles, the secondhand clothes, the double shifts, all fake. Olivia's voice shattered like glass against the empty ballroom walls. I stood there, no longer the servant, no longer the diner manager, just a mother watching her daughter's world crumble. The wedding guests were gone, leaving only echoes of scandal and overturned champagne flutes. The fairy lights mockingly twinkled above us, illuminating the wreckage of 27 years of careful deception. Not fake, I said, my voice steadier than my heart. Orchestrated. There's a difference. A difference? Olivia laughed, the sound sharp enough to draw blood. What's the difference between a lie and an orchestration, Mother? Please, enlighten me with your billionaire wisdom. I moved closer, but she backed away as if I were contaminated. The physical rejection hurt worse than any words could. The difference, I said quietly, is intention. Every choice I made, every struggle I allowed you to experience, was designed to give you something money can't buy. A soul that understands value beyond price tags. You let me struggle? Her voice climbed higher. You sat in your secret penthouse and watched me cry over bills, watched me work 3 jobs in college, watched me eat ramen for weeks to save for textbooks you could have bought with pocket change? Yes. The simple admission seemed to shock her. I watched, and it killed me. Every single time. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Not the cheap prepaid I usually carried, but my real one. The one with 27 years of photos she'd never seen. Look, I scrolled to a picture dated 15 years ago. This is me in my office, my real office, watching your school's Christmas pageant through security cameras because I couldn't be there. I'd told you I had to work a double shift. I swiped to another photo. This is me crying in my car after dropping you at that sleepover where the other girls made fun of your thrift store clothes. I sat outside all night in case you needed me. Another swipe. This is the check I wrote to anonymously pay off your friend Melissa's student loans after you gave her your last $500 to help with her mother's medical bills. You thought you were being selfless with money you needed. You never knew I made sure you got it back through that accounting error at your job.
Stop.
Olivia's hands shook as she pressed them to her temples. Just stop. But I couldn't. The dam had broken, and 27 years of hidden truths came flooding out. This is every report card, every award, every photo of you helping someone, displayed in my real office, the office where I run an empire worth billions, surrounded by pictures of my daughter, who thinks I wait tables for tips. Why? The word came out as a wail. Why would you do this to me? Because your father taught me that money is poison. I set the phone aside, my hands trembling now too. Because I learned that wealth doesn't reveal character, it corrupts it. Because I refused to watch money destroy you the way it destroyed everyone else I loved. So you destroyed me instead? The accusation hung between us like a blade. Did I? I challenged, finding strength in desperation. Look at yourself, Olivia. Look at who you became. You're brilliant, independent, compassionate. You volunteer at homeless shelters because you want to, not for photo ops. You chose a career in nonprofit work when you could have done anything. You fell in love with a good man and he fell in love with you, not your trust fund, not your connections, just you. A good man I can't even trust now. She rolled on Jamie, who'd been standing silent guard nearby. How do I know you weren't part of this? How do I know my mother didn't arrange our meeting or relationship, everything? Jamie's face went carefully blank, a look I recognized from board meetings when someone was about to deliver devastating news. You want to know the truth? He said quietly. Fine, here's the truth. I noticed things, little things that didn't add up. Your mother's hands, for starters. She supposedly works in a diner, but her manicure is always perfect. Subtle, yes, but perfect. $100 gel jobs, not press-ons from CVS. My heart sank. I'd been so careful, but apparently not careful enough. Her shoes, Jamie continued. Sensible flats, appropriate for restaurant work, but the wear pattern was wrong. Those shoes walked on carpet, not kitchen floors, and they were Ferragamos with the labels removed. I know because my mother has the same pair. You knew? Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. I suspected. Then there was the time she recommended that hole-in-the-wall restaurant for our anniversary. It had a 3-month waiting list, and somehow we got a table immediately. The owner personally served us and wouldn't let us pay. He kept calling her Miss M before catching himself. I closed my eyes. The Rosewood. I owned it through a subsidiary. I'd been sloppy, wanting to give them a perfect evening. And the biggest tell? Jamie moved closer to his wife. The way she looked at you. Like she was simultaneously the most precious and most fragile thing in the world. Like someone who'd seen terrible things and was determined to shield you from them. That's not the look of a simple diner manager. That's the look of someone with power who's choosing not to use it.
And you said nothing? Olivia's voice cracked. You suspected my mother was lying, and you said nothing? Because I realized something. Jamie reached for her hands, and this time she didn't pull away. Whatever she was hiding, she was doing it for you. And the woman it created, the woman I fell in love with, was worth any secret. Don't! But her protest was weak, torn. The night I proposed, I almost didn't. Not because I didn't love you, but because I didn't know if I was worthy of someone who could be so genuinely good, despite, or maybe because of, whatever your mother was protecting you from. This is insane, Olivia pulled free, pacing the empty ballroom in her wedding dress. This whole thing is insane. My mother is a billionaire, my husband suspected it, my whole life is a Truman Show episode, and everyone's fine with it? I'm not fine with it, Ashley spoke up, for the first time since the room cleared. I'm furious, actually. You're furious? Olivia asked. Absolutely. Do you know what I could have done with even a fraction of that money in college? The opportunities I missed because I was too busy working to study. Ashley's eyes flashed. But you know what? I'm also grateful because the Olivia who grew up with billions wouldn't have been my friend. She wouldn't have stayed up all night helping me study when I was failing chemistry. She wouldn't have given me her last $20 for tampons and told me money was just paper. She would have been me, a new voice said from the doorway. We all turned to see Barbara Brooks, who'd apparently snuck back in despite orders to leave. She would have been me, Barbara repeated, entering uninvited. Shallow, materialistic, judging everyone by their net worth, marrying for mergers instead of love, teaching my son that appearance matters more than substance. Mother! Jamie stared at her in shock. Barbara's perfectly composed face showed cracks of something almost like humanity. You think I don't know what I am? What I've become? I grew up with money, old money, the kind that comes with expectations and arrangements and a complete inability to trust anyone's motives. You gave your daughter what my parents never gave me, a chance to be human first, heiress second.
Get out, Jamie said coldly. You don't get to make this about you. I'm not. I'm making it about her. Barbara gestured to Olivia. Do you think Ryan Westbrook was the first, the only? Darling, if they knew you had billions, there would have been dozens of Ryans, hundreds, each one better at the game than the last. So I needed to be protected like a princess in a tower? Olivia's voice turned bitter. Hidden away from the big bad world? No, I finally found my voice again. You needed to be prepared. Every challenge you faced, every problem you solved, every dollar you stretched, it was training, not for poverty, but for power. I walked to the windows overlooking the city, gathering my thoughts. Do you know what happens to inherited wealth typically? Gone within 3 generations, because money without wisdom is just expensive destruction. I didn't hide my wealth to keep you weak. I hid it to make you strong. By lying to me? By loving you enough to be hated for it. I turned back to face her. I knew this day would come. I knew you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me now. And I accepted that as the price of giving you something priceless, the knowledge that you are enough, just as you are, without a penny to your name. But I'm not without a penny to my name, Olivia exploded. I'm apparently worth billions I didn't earn, didn't work for, didn't even know existed. No, I corrected firmly. I'm worth billions. You're worth exactly what you've made of yourself, which is extraordinary. The money, that's just numbers in accounts. Your worth, that's the life you've built, the people you've helped, the love you've found. That's real. Real? She laughed bitterly. Nothing about my life is real. The apartment I thought we scrimped to save for, probably yours. The job I thought I earned on merit, probably arranged. Your job wasn't arranged. David Chen spoke quietly from his corner. I offered to pull strings. Your mother forbade it. You earned your position at the Children's Foundation entirely on your own. In fact, she made sure I couldn't help even if I wanted to. Great, so my professional life is real, just my entire personal existence was fabricated. Olivia. I moved closer, my heart breaking at the devastation in her eyes. Do you remember when you were 7 and found that injured pigeon? You insisted we nurse it back to health, even though I told you we couldn't afford a vet. You said pigeons were rats with wings. She whispered. I lied. I love pigeons. But you needed to learn to fight for what mattered to you, even against opposition. You kept that bird alive with determination and Google searches. You released it 2 months later and cried for an hour.
Because I loved it. Because you love something that couldn't give you anything in return. That's who you are, Olivia. Not because of money or the lack of it, but because of the heart I watched grow with every challenge, every triumph, every loss. Every lie, she added. Yes, every lie that protected the truth of who you could become. Silence stretched between us, heavy with 27 years of deception and love tangled too tightly to separate. Show me, Olivia said suddenly. What? Show me. This empire you built, this life you hid. I want to see all of it. I studied her face, searching for her intent. Why? Because I need to know who my mother really is before I can decide if I still want her in my life. The words cut deep, but I recognize the fairness in them. All right, but not here. Not in this place built on assumptions and appearances. Where then? I looked at my daughter, my brilliant, broken, brave daughter, and made one last gamble. Home. Our real home. The penthouse you never knew was just an elevator ride away from the apartment where I tucked you in every night for 18 years. You're joking. The building has private elevators. You lived on the 15th floor. I lived on the 40th and 41st. Some nights after you were asleep, I'd go up just to breathe, to pee myself for a few hours before becoming your struggling mother again. That's... Olivia shook her head. That's psychotic. That's motherhood taken to an extreme I don't recommend. I managed a weak smile. But it's also the truth. So, what do you say? Are you ready to meet Victoria Mitchell, or would you prefer to remember only Tori, the diner manager who loved you more than life itself? Olivia looked at Jamie, who nodded slightly. At Ashley, who shrugged as if to say, might as well. Even at Barbara, who stood quietly for once in her life. One condition, Olivia said finally. Anything. We go now, in my wedding dress, because if I change, if I wait, if I think about this for one more second, I'll run. And despite everything, despite the lies and manipulation and complete insanity of the situation, I don't want to run from you. Not really. My eyes filled with tears I didn't try to hide. Then let's go home. Both of us, for the first time. As we prepared to leave the ruins of the wedding reception, I caught sight of our reflection in the ballroom mirrors. A billionaire in a servant's uniform, and a bride in a second-hand looking dress that actually cost more than most cars. We looked like characters from different stories forced into the same frame, which I suppose we were. For what it's worth, I said softly as we walked toward the exit, the greatest truth I ever told was the hardest one to believe. That I love you more than money, more than power, more than anything in this world or any other. I know, Olivia whispered, and for the first time since Ryan's revelation, she looked at me with something other than betrayal. That's the only reason I'm still here. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't acceptance, but it was a beginning. And after 27 years of endings, I'd take any beginning I could get.
1 year later, I stood in Olivia's kitchen, a modest but lovely space in Brooklyn, watching her prepare Sunday dinner. Not the penthouse I'd offered, not the mansion in the Hamptons, just a simple 2-bedroom apartment she and Jamie had chosen themselves. "Mom, can you pass the salt?" She didn't look up from the stove, but the word Mom no longer carried the sharp edge it had for months after the wedding. "You're overcooking the pasta," I observed, handing her the salt shaker, a cheap thing from Target that made me smile. "I'm cooking it exactly how I like it," she retorted, but her lips twitched. "Not everyone needs perfectly al dente pasta prepared by a Michelin-starred chef." "I know. That's why I fired him last month." She turned, eyes wide. "You didn't." "I did. I'm learning to cook. Really cook. Burned eggs 3 times last week." I showed her my bandaged finger and nearly lost a digit to a rogue carrot. Olivia laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. The sound filled the small kitchen like sunshine. Victoria Mitchell, billionaire CEO, defeated by a carrot. Tori Mitchell, your mother, learning what she should have years ago, I corrected gently. Money can't buy everything. It certainly can't buy back time or trust. The laughter faded, but didn't disappear entirely. No, it can't. A timer dinged, and she turned back to rescue her deliberately overcooked pasta. Through the window, I could see Jamie in the small backyard, assembling what looked like a disaster of a barbecue grill while consulting YouTube videos on his phone. He refused the executive fast track at his firm, Olivia said quietly. He said he'd rather earn his promotion slowly than have people wonder if his billionaire mother-in-law made calls. Smart man. Stubborn man, like someone else I know. She glanced at me. The foundation tried to give me a raise last month, a big one. I know it was you. It wasn't. Mom,
It wasn't, I insisted. I wanted to, desperately. David had to physically restrain me from making the call, but I didn't. Your raise came because you increased donations by 30% and expanded the program to 3 new schools. You earned it.
She blinked rapidly, focusing intently on stirring sauce. Oh. I'm learning too, baby. Learning that real love means stepping back, not constantly stepping in. Is that why you gave away half your fortune last month? I smiled. You heard about that? It was in every newspaper, Mom. Mystery billionaire donates $1.6 billion to education. Not exactly subtle. I kept enough, more than enough. The rest is doing what money should, building futures for kids who remind me of who you might have been in different circumstances. Kids who need chances, not handouts. Olivia was quiet for a long moment, then, I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a physical force. I gripped the counter, my vision blurring. Mom, I'm going to be a grandmother? My voice came out as a whisper. You're going to be a grandmother. She turned to face me fully. I want you to know something. This baby will grow up knowing exactly who you are. No secrets, no lies. They'll know their grandmother is a billionaire who chose love over luxury, who taught their mother that the best inheritance isn't money but values. I was crying now, not caring about my makeup or dignity. But they'll also know boundaries, Olivia continued firmly. No secret bodyguards, no manufactured struggles, no hidden penthouses. They'll have choices I didn't have, and that's okay. Because you were right about one thing. The woman I became was worth every sacrifice, even if your methods were completely insane.
Completely insane might be underselling it, I admitted. Mom. She took my hands, her engagement ring catching the light, that simple diamond Jamie had chosen with his heart, not his wallet. I spent months hating you, then months understanding you. Now, she squeezed gently, now I'm grateful, not for the lies, but for the love behind them. You gave me something most rich kids never get, the chance to know I'm enough without the money. That's a gift I can't repay. You just did, I whispered. Outside, Jamie let out a victory whoop as the grill finally sparked to life. We both laughed, the sound mixing with the smell of marinara and the warmth of a small kitchen in Brooklyn. This wasn't the life I had imagined when I held my baby girl 28 years ago, terrified and alone. It was better, because in this modest apartment with overcooked pasta and a husband assembling budget furniture, my daughter had found something all my billions couldn't buy. A life built on truth, sustained by love, and rich in ways that had nothing to do with money. I love you, Mom, Olivia said simply. The real you. All of you. Even the crazy parts. Especially the crazy parts? I asked hopefully. Let's not push it. But she was smiling as she said it. As I helped set the table with mismatched plates, a choice, not a necessity, I realized the greatest truth of all. Sometimes the best gift a parent can give isn't what we leave our children, but what we teach them to build for themselves. And my daughter, she'd built something beautiful.
Thank God she hadn't known. Thank God I'd hidden it. Thank God for every hard choice that led to this moment. A family dinner where love was the only currency that mattered.